Hello there, I'm Artistic Gamer 7 and welcome back to another speed build here on the channel. Today I'm building in Oasis Springs. I am slowly still trying to fill up all of the lots for, like, basically it's gonna go into, like, my main save, but also just, you know, it helps me be able to try and test the build on the different sizes of lots and in the different sections and deal with the different towns, because sometimes, like, the towns influence how I make the build look. And now, obviously, if you ever want to download any of mine, you don't have to place them in the exact same lot that I build them in. But I do like trying to build in the different lots just to see what outcomes will possibly come of it and, like, how the build will turn out and maybe change based on where I build it, because I try to take different things into consideration when building. Like, sometimes I'll have a picture to reference, and sometimes I'll use multiple pictures. Like, I'll take, like, I like this part of this house in this picture, but I like this part of this particular house, and so I, like, fuse them and combine them, and a lot of times I'll have sims in consideration when building them. Just a bunch of different things to try to have different influences and, like, decisions on why I want to, like, have to influence the build so that hopefully my builds will turn out differently every time I do them. And also give me, like, somewhat of a challenge or something to try out every once in a while, some change, some difference. So today is Oasis Springs, and going in I really didn't have much of a plan other than, one, I wanted to actually have it be more of a smaller build. I didn't want it to be a bigger build because, one, I'm actually someone who medium to bigger size builds is more of a comfort zone for me, which is sort of strange. Now, extra large builds that some people do, not so much. Like, the ones that I'm not a good enough builder to, like, try to build some of these really elaborate things that I've seen. I wish I could, but for some reason I can't do it. Like, when I start building in Sims, I can't fully wrap my brain around how they're fully doing some of the things that they're doing to make these builds look the way they are. I know recently over on Twitter I've been seeing Sati, I think that's how it's said, has been recreating the Hyrule Castle, which I am so fascinated with. I am a huge Legend of Zelda fan, so, like, I'm keep looking for the tweets on updates on how it looks, because it just looks absolutely amazing, and I wish I could do something like that, but I cannot. They are such a talented builder. Like, they are amazing. I love seeing their stuff on Twitter, so definitely suggest go giving them a look. I'll actually try to remember to put their link down in the description below to their Twitter so that you could go see for yourself some of the things they've built. And like I said, right now it's the Hyrule Castle, which I am super excited to see how it turns out. But anyway, on to my build here. My little simple build. So I did try to stick, like, at first you may have seen me actually use one of the darker woods of this, but I actually had, like, I go through, like, phases unintentionally. I'm like, lately I've been building a lot of builds that have lighter colors, so let me go to the darker colors, but then I get stuck on that, and then I'm like, oh, I've been building too many builds with darker tones, I should go back to some more lighter tones, and then I get stuck on that. So it's just like at least lately I've noticed, like, it's been back and forth. As far as the last three builds, because if you watched the Wonderbrook Manor, I mentioned how I had built 3 different builds in 2 days, so I had worked on the 3 builds right after one another. There's definitely a difference in between those 3 builds, because Wonderbrook Manor was one of them. This is one of the others. The third one should be coming out next week. There is a shell challenge that I'm going to be doing, but I don't think I'm going to upload it until the end of the month, because the due date for it to be potentially looked at isn't until the end of the month, and that is actually Katie's Shell Challenge, or Yellow Plum Bomb. So I'm going to be doing that soon, and like I said, I'll probably post it around the end of February, so the other build should be showing up before that one does. The other one I built along with these three. They're definitely different. For once, I didn't get stuck in a thing, because this one's, like, got light and dark tones, so it's not all dark, but it's not, like, all light, and then there's one that is, like, mostly light tones, and then the manor, obviously, was not light tones, it was more dark tones. So, or shades. But, anyway, so yeah. I didn't do it with these three builds, luckily. Maybe that was because I did build them one after another, so, like, I had more of a conscious awareness that, you know, let's not make these three look anything alike. I will say, though, this build and the other build have a lot of plants in them. I went a little plant crazy for both of them, so they do have that in common, but everything else is quite different. But yeah, so my little tiny build here, one of the reasons, though, I feel like sometimes my builds do turn out a little simple, and that's for small or big. Some of the big ones tend to be not as simple, obviously, just partially because of their size, but, you know, I try to keep in mind that I want this to be playable, because I do want to, a lot of the builds that I build, I do want to transfer over into my main save, or potentially use in future challenges and stuff like that. I've reused a lot of my builds that I've done in the past in the Not So Berry challenge world, so that there's at least, especially because I decided, for some reason, I decided to have my mint generation start out in Newcrest. And, you know, Newcrest, when you start a new save, has no buildings in it at all. It's a completely blank world. So I had to go put all these buildings up for it to be at least look like there's a lot of houses. Yeah, I may never visit those houses, I may never see them or whatever, but they're there so that they at least, you know, it's like, okay, at least it doesn't look like empty lots all over the place. So yeah, but I don't know why I chose to do Newcrest, to live in Newcrest first. I wanted to do one of the 3 base game worlds, just for the first generation at least, but out of the 3 that come in base game, I chose Newcrest instead of Willow Creek and Oasis Spring, which already has buildings all around. But anyway, yes, so I do actually build these within the mind of, I want them to be 100% usable, so a lot of times I don't take too many risks when building things and, like, too many crazy things, because, like, Sims they not the smartest of beings, because, you know, they're programmed with certain things, and their programming gets all confused when you place things too close together. I love move objects, but, you know, sometimes Sims don't comprehend what you're doing when you use move objects, so you have to be careful. I do always use move objects in my build, so that's one thing to keep in mind. I don't know if it still does it, because I haven't done a huge collab in a while. I was gonna do a monthly collab in January, but I actually was having, like, a whole lot of anxiety issues. I'm still sort of dealing with those on and off. I was on medicine last year, but they only gave me enough refills for like 2 or 3 months, and then they was like, call and tell you if you need them again or whatever, and then we'll just refill them. And I am the type of person who has a stubborn attitude when it comes to certain things, and my mom, when she was alive, she actually had a lot of pills she had to take. Now, obviously, like, you know, they were making her feel better, and they were making her healthier and, like, you know, live a more tolerable life, but at the same time, how many pills she had to take. And now, like, my dad also is starting to pile up the pills, and, like, in my head, I was like, I don't want to start adding pills on too early in my life, because I'm like, eventually I'm probably gonna have to have a bunch of pills. So stubborn me was like, you know what, I'm feeling better now. Maybe it was just, like, you know, a one-time low, at least for my younger portion of my life. Maybe it'll be an issue again when I get older, but who knows? Let's see if I'll be okay without them. I'm not okay without them. I'm really not. And some days I'm perfectly fine, like, it doesn't bother me at all, but there's some days that I struggle a lot, so I'm probably not gonna do a monthly collab for February either, because I'm actually going back to the doctor, because since it's been so long, I have to go back instead of just calling them in like they were originally going to do. But I'm actually going to get back on my anxiety nerve pills, whatever they're called or referred to as. So I think I'll be feeling more in a position to maybe try in March or April, depending, because sometimes they can take a bit of time to take full effect. So just play it by ear and see how it goes once I get back on those to figure out whether or not I'll do it in March or wait until April to start my monthly collabs back. But I don't, that is, the collabs, I love doing them, but I will say they do add an extra little bit of stress into the month, especially towards the end, so that's why I'm like, I don't want to worry and stress about that just yet. I want to get my anxiety back in a better place, so before I, like, go full-on stress-inducing in some ways. I love them so much, so I'm sort of sad that I'm not going to be doing them this month, and I'm sad that I didn't get to do it last month, but, you know, sometimes you have to pick and choose. So after thinking about it and stuff, I felt that this was the better option and better way. But anyway, back to this build. I don't even know how I got onto that tangent of talking about something about my month. Oh yeah, because I was talking about how I was gonna do the shell challenge and stuff like that, and then anyway, my brain just goes off one thing to the other, and in my brain it's so well connected, but then when I get to the end of the conversation, I'm like, how did I get here? Like, what? When it's happening, my brain's just like, yeah, this makes total sense. By the end of it, my brain is really confused on how I even got there. Like, what? But, what? We were just, 1 minute we're talking about lemons, and now we're, like, over on the subject of broken fingers or something. I don't know, like... It's completely all over the place. But anyway, so yeah, with this build, with my builds in general, I do try to not go too crazy because I do want them to be livable. There are some situations where I'm still iffy about stuff, and usually when they get really iffy, like extremely iffy, I actually playtest them. I don't playtest all my builds, I admit that. But if you ever have, like, an issue, just let me know. I could always, like, refix it and re-upload it so that other people don't have to worry about it if they download it, or if it's a simple fix, you know, whatever. Hopefully none of them are too bad, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, this is definitely a single person living arrangement. Sort of going with the idea, you know, there's all these plants around, but we're in the desert. It's sort of like the person really, really loves plants, but for whatever reason, they're living in more of a desert climate. Now, obviously with Oasis Springs, there are certain sections that has quite a bit of plant life. A lot of it is more cactus based, but, you know, there's still a lot of areas that actually have some flowers growing and stuff like that. So I try to stick with plants on the outside, for the most part, that look like they fit in Oasis Springs. So, like, the coloring, the leaves, like, you know, there wasn't as many flower-based ones. I added some cactus. But there are still a few flowers that I added, because in my head I was imagining that whoever lives here really, really loves plants, and they do everything they can to take care of the plants inside and out, because you should have seen down in, like, the living room, dining, kitchen, open area down there, that there was a lot of plants down there as well. Or you will be. Right now I'm still doing the walls and stuff, actually. Like, the for once I didn't have to cut out the lighting and the walling and, like, all that stuff. Because usually when I place the lights and the wallpaper and the floor plan, I cut 2 of those things out and leave just the one, because they sort of show off all 3 together usually. Or, like, you see them as I'm doing the rest of the build, so, like, putting the objects and stuff in, so I don't worry about them as much. But with this build, since it was smaller and I had the record time was shorter, I actually was able to leave everything in. But yeah, the person I'm imagining is, like, actually truly taking care of the plants. So the plants outside that are not necessarily screaming Oasis Spring vibes, they still take care of them enough that they actually survive out here. So in my mind, either the person living here, you know, they really love plants, but for some reason they need to live in Oasis Springs, whether it's because of family or, like, you know, there's someone who needs to be in contact with friends as well, so maybe it's something about friends, maybe they grew up here, even if family's still not here, maybe it holds a special place, maybe it's for work, or maybe they actually like the desert vibes, but they also like plants, so, you know, they have this thing that's contradicting, but they're trying to have the best of both worlds. Along those lines, that's sort of what I was going for. I did a lot of fun colors throughout this build, because I didn't want to stick in, like, the outside, you know, looks more like a doesn't scream colors other than the plant life for themselves, but I wanted to bring a lot of color into this because Oasis Springs, sometimes the buildings that I've built in there and seen some people built in there, not always, but at least the ones that I remember vaguely, a lot of times sticks with a certain color palette, one or two other color palettes. So I just wanted to go color explosion, and I don't go color explosion too often. Usually I go into a build with a theme of colors that I'm like, I want to stick throughout most of the build until the bedrooms. The bedrooms are always my exception, in most cases, because especially when you're having multiple bedrooms, which means multiple people live there. So, like, your kids and your teenagers are going to start having their own personal style. So, yeah, their rooms are not going to look like the rest of the house. They're not the ones living or staying in that room. So, obviously, whoever the parents are, like, the main person of the house or whatever, whoever owns the house, they're going to decorate a lot of the house the way that they want to. And even their bedroom will probably match a lot of the rest of the house for the most part. Not completely, but for the most part. But the other bedrooms should sort of have some of their own flair to them because those are other people's rooms. But yeah, with this one, it's just because it's one person living here, the whole entire house is just splashes of color everywhere. I went color crazy, and right here in this little section around the TV, I went plant crazy. I actually really need to download, like, it's like a little red shelf that you can just, like, place anywhere, basically, that objects can easily snap to, but I've just been dealing with the raising it up from the floor if I have to. If it's auto-clicking and it's auto-clicking to somewhere I don't want it, I place a lot of that object until all the little spots that it can click to are filled and then do the lifting up. You've probably seen me do that several times in builds in the past, but probably if I got that shelf, probably would spare me a lot of time and effort, but you know, I just, for some reason, I have not downloaded it. Every time I go, like, a little bit of CC shopping, I for some reason just don't download it at all. So I'm like, oh well. I will say I am considering taking out most of my build CC, but then, like, when I go to take it out, I'm like, I really like a lot of the CC, and, like, I want to put it, but I build with almost no CC, except for every once in a while I'll do a build with CC. But because I want to let it upload so that people can download it, I know CC makes it even harder. And the fact that I don't exclude packs already makes it a little bit on the hard side. But, adding CC is going to make it even more complicated. So, I don't almost ever use CC. And then when I place it down into my main save, where I allow CC, like in my playing worlds, I don't always fully update it. Like, I think in my head that I'm gonna change it up a bit and update it with CC that I have, and I rarely do. It's usually only, like, in the rare circumstances, like, someone ages up, or, like, they have a child, so then I start adding the CC stuff, but, so I've been debating, but I don't think in the end I'm going to. Probably not. Just because that small chance that I might actually use the CC. And some of the houses that I actually have put CC in already, I'd have to go back and re-add non-CC objects, so I don't want to do that either. But yeah, so it's still in the process of me adding a whole bunch of plants right here. This is just, like, plant central. To me, like, they're going to be staying down in this area the most. This is where they're going to have guests the most, so obviously, you know, they're going to want to express themselves a whole lot in that one area. They also express themselves a lot in the bedroom section up here. Now, with this gondola or whatever archway thing that it had in the entrance, that was something I think I got distracted off on what I was saying, but that was one of the few things going into this build that I was 100% sure wanting to do. So it was the small build, and that I didn't actually use any photo references for this build. This is one of them that I just completely built out of my head. But I really wanted to have, like, a gondola thing over top of it. And, like, we do have, like, little roof-looking, like, things that are supposed to be able to go over the doorways, but they're so tiny, and the feel that I was going for was more of, like, something bigger for that front entrance. And I didn't want to do, like, roofing tiles, like, extend a roof out, because, one, it would just look like a strange roof, and also because I was trying to go for at least one of the small home options, I didn't want to have too many tiles, and I was afraid that would count as tiles. I'm not sure if I was just able to extend a roof, how that would work technically with the number of tiling, but I feel like it would mess it up. But also, I just didn't want that look. I wanted it to be more of something like I put down there. And since I and I wasn't going in with the plant theme at all until I placed that particular archway, because there's not archway, I wouldn't even say gondola, but gondola is the main thing going in my head, because gondola is usually like a more octangular or round thing that has railing around it and a little rooftop over top of it. I can't think of what those are called right now, but the thing in front and over top of the entranceway. Yeah. So I knew I wanted one of those, and I picked that one, and it had flowers going up it, and I was like, I don't want those flowers to look out of place, so I want to add a few flowers here. And then it's like, you know what? Let me go a little bit crazy with the plants. Let the person living here love the plants, even though they're living in Oasis Springs. Like, let me just bring some life in Oasis Springs. So that's where the plant thing started, was with that particular one. I also just really like how that one looks. I think it looks really, really pretty. But the one thing about it is those things do stick through the wall. Now downstairs, you're not going to really see it too much because it's up high. I originally was playing around and thinking about ways to block those and hide those. But considering it's going into the bathroom as well as and the like entryway, I didn't know of a way necessarily to fully hide those all the way across in both the bathroom and the main room and it look right. So I decided just not to fool with it, and maybe like, that's like some sort of detail inside that house or whatever, but also really because of the way the house is built, you won't really see those too often when you're actually playing, because they're on the ceiling, so you rarely ever see the ceiling when you're playing Sims. I play with like the half wall, like the wall's half down. I used to play with them fully down. Like, that's how I used to play Sims. When I played Sims 1, 2, and 3, I believe, I played it with walls fully down. But as I got into Sims 4, I decided to start letting the walls stay halfway up, but I don't like them all the way up because I can't sometimes, depending on the size of the room, I can't always see my Sims very well. So I let the walls be up in the background so that, it's not just straight seeing outside, but I want to still see my Sims. But yeah, so if you're playing with the walls fully down or the half wall thing, you probably definitely really won't notice. But even with the full wall thing, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be able to see it too much because you don't see that really high upper section of your Sims living area too much in like play mode. Now obviously if you go into tab mode and you're trying to take screenshots, yeah, you're gonna see them. That is gonna have work. Now as far as the upstairs, which is just the bedroom and a bathroom up here, I use those shelves to actually hide them up there, because since they are on the floor you would see them all the time. So I use those shelves to hide them and make them as like a little side thing that you can like store stuff on. I thought it looked really cute, and I really liked the idea of just having like a low shelf that you had stuff on. Now obviously if you had a pet of some kind, that would be a little frustrating, but at the same time, it's still a cool little idea. And if you even had that, you can even make it like pet friendly and like do something so that the pet wouldn't bother it too much. Now obviously in The Sims, they're not going to do that. They're only programmed to interact with certain surfaces and things like that, so they wouldn't do anything. So in The Sims, you don't have to worry about it. And I did try to keep in mind that, this person would have people over. That's why, like, the dining room table down there has 3 chairs. I would have done a 4th chair, but it just really would not fit. Now, obviously, I could probably make it fit, and it looked like if it was a real-life house, you could easily see ways to sit at those chairs and, like, still get into the fridge and still sit on the couch and walk in between the couch and the dining chairs. But this is Sims, and that's one of, like I said before, I do try to make my builds in mind with the Sims actually living in this house and like actually functioning in this house. So I try to keep that in mind when building. Like, I want the Sims to be able to walk around, so I had a feeling if I added that 4th chair, something was not going to work. So I did not add it. Also, you may hear the train in the background, so everyone say hi to the train. Okay. Acknowledge the train's existence. Stupid train. Always coming when I record voiceovers. I swear, that train, the trains around here, for some reason, where I'm at, you hear them more than on the side, because there's a river in between where the train is at and where my house is at. And I have a friend who lives, or lives technically, she moved in with my other friend currently, but she used to live over on that side, and my boyfriend's sister also lives over on that side, actually very close to where my friend lived, like extremely close. But you can't hear the train almost at all over there, and they're on the side that the train is on, but over here you hear the train clear as day. It makes no sense to my brain, but, because they're closer to the train, but I never hear the train when I'm over there, pretty much, except for, like, if I'm outside, but other than that, I pretty much never hear it, but over here, I hear it every time, but yeah, so it seems to only come when I'm recording stuff to where my mic is actually active. So if I'm doing the create a sim part, or the build part where I don't have to worry about my mic, and I'm not recording my mic, train usually doesn't come. As soon as I do a voiceover or like a LP recording, train's there all of a sudden. But anyway, yeah, let's stop talking about the train. But yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this build. I loved this build. I had a lot of fun with it once I started getting going. Sometimes with builds where I don't have any real direction of what I'm doing other than like one small detail, which in this case, well, two small details was, one, make it small, two, have that little thing over the door entranceway outside. That was my only two things. Sometimes with those builds, I struggle a bit at the beginning. This one I didn't struggle too much, but still, it was a little bit there. I didn't know where I was going, didn't know what direction I was taking. But it was sort of an example of, like, slowly letting things come to you. Let some of the objects that you start picking decide where you're going to continue to go with it. But I had loads of fun. I love all the color. I love all the, like, clutter of plants and things like that all over the place. I imagine that whoever lives here is like going to be a happy, free-going person. I wouldn't be surprised if they're an artist of some kind, to be honest with you. But I enjoyed doing this so much. Once I got the flow and hang of things and like knew where I was, like, some of the big directions I wanted to go, I was like having fun with it. But I really hope that you enjoyed this video as well and enjoyed this house. And I forget to say the name of the build, and like you can go download it early on. But if you want to go download this build, it is going to be up on the gallery. It is going to be called Plant Oasis Home, so you can go and download it there. My origin ID is artisticgamer7. All that information will be down in the description below if you ever forget it, so you can go down there and quickly check it out instead of having to find the point in the video where I mention my info. So you can go check the descriptions of the builds and see what the names of them were and my origin ID if you don't know exactly how it's spelled or whatever such things. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this build down in the comments below, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Bye bye!